Welcome to Allie's Attic, where you never know what kind of surprise you'll find in my attic. I'm your host, Allie, and today my surprise is just sit down and listen to this, a recording artist, a musician, a producer, and an actor. Please welcome Jon Raven. Hi, Jon.
Hi, Allie. How are you?
I'm good. So tell me what you haven't done. No, I'm joking. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if I could say it on here without my attorney.
No, then I might need an attorney, and I don't have one, so no. Anyways, thank you so much for coming on my show. So basically, what I want you to tell me, Jon, like your story is incredible. Like I said, you've done so many different things and performed with so many amazing people. So basically, just tell me, like, when you started, getting interested in all of this stuff and where it's taken you right up to right now.
Okay. Well, what's funny, it was never really something I thought out. My family had a gospel band that recorded a few albums under a subsidiary of RCA. So between the time I was 5 and 10, I did 4 gospel albums, and we toured extensively. This was back in the 70s. And a lot of big gospel singers, and a lot of the people went on from gospel to become secular country artists and different things.
Yeah, like
and then so that was kind of my early life. I was rarely in school. I was pretty much tutored and traveled all the time with that. And then from about 10 to 13, I had kind of we made a pretty big move across the country. And had about 3 years away from any kind of spotlight at all.
Wow.
And during that period, I from the time I was young as well, I was studying martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend who was doing print modeling that hooked me up with an agent that thought I would do well with that. So at 13, I got into print, and because of the martial arts, the agent that I was connected to, they were looking for somebody. They were doing a film called Peyton Place for the Next Generation.
Yeah.
Which, if memory serves, I think it was an ABC movie of the week. I wanted to say it was ABC.
Okay.
And so they needed somebody about my size and my look that could fake taking a punch and fall off a big stack of crates onto some boxes. And so I was like, okay, yeah. And the money was good. So that kind of led to a lot of fight scenes and doing that type thing in film. And did that for a while, and then I ended up, probably one of the weirder chapters of my life was I ended up working for Jim and Tammy Baker. They had their large, resort amusement park that they had, and they had this passion play. And so I ended up going in and choreographing like all the crucifixion and beating scenes and all of that stuff, and played a couple of different roles as a bad guy, and it ended up doing that for a couple of seasons, and then throughout the time that I hit 15, 16, but because of the tutoring, I had actually, I was given special permission from the state that we were living in at the time, and took a GED very young and was actually studying law.
Wow.
Before I was 16.
Oh my God.
And was doing those things as I was doing the entertainment stuff. And my mom had this conversation with me, and she was like, well, you're at the age where you can go out and get a job. In my brain, that meant I took off to California.
Well, that's a good place to get a job.
And one thing led to another, and got around rock and roll. And after coming from a real religious background and doing the gospel music and all of that, I discovered that everything that I had heard for years that I was going to go to hell for, I didn't instantly go to hell, which was good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the rock and roll lifestyle was certainly eye-opening and appealing and tempting.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I ended up sticking around for a couple and a half decades, whatever it is now. 30 years, something like that. So that's kind of the Reader's Digest version.
Okay, so now I'm going to touch on the high points. Okay, so when you were performing gospel, I just want to mention who you sang with. Okay, the band you were in was called the Brothers and Ruth, and you sang alongside legends like the Dixie Melody Boys, the Oak Ridge Boys, the Hopper Brothers, and Connie. Yep. Now, they went on, the Oak Ridge Boys, huge country band. Then you signed, at 13 is when you started modeling. And then you did your Taekwondo. You also won, you took first place in 84 in fighting in forms at the U.S. Taekwondo Championships. So that's huge. Yeah, no wonder you got cast for all these things. And then you also decided to study with Adam Rourke. And I love this because I haven't heard this name in ages. With the now infamous Film Actors Lab located in Dallas, Texas. And it's been dubbed the Hells Angels School of Acting. And who helped you? Who helped you?
Lou Diamond Phillips.
Lou Diamond Phillips, yes.
It was Lou and I, we used to have a blast. Adam actually used to warn us when he had new students coming in not to scare them off. And Lou actually, I don't think I've seen him on anything major do it, but I can tell you he does one of the best gay waiters that you could imagine.
Oh, really? That's funny.
He's absolutely fantastic at it. And we literally, when people were coming in for auditions, and Lou was, up until he got La Bamba, he had got a couple of parts, and what was ironic was because of our look, we ended up a lot of times we were reading for the same parts. But when he got La Bamba, we had a pretty good little celebration in the afternoon when he got the news, and had a great time with that. But he was kind of Adam's. Adam really took him under his wing, and he was kind of his right-hand guy at the Film Actors Lab. He helped teach classes and things, It was a really unique time, but because of his position with Adam, when they would have people come in to audition, we were free to torture them. So we had a good time with that.
Oh my God, that's funny. Okay, so throughout the 80s and 90s, you were a frontman, a guitarist, with bands of varying degrees of success, but you chose to start fresh as a solo artist. So you've co-produced your first album with award-winning Canadian producer, yay Canada, Rick Kilbourne, and also Glenna Prowry at Riverside Studios in Burnaby, Canada, which is nice.
Yeah, that was a blast.
Burnaby's
beautiful. That was an absolute blast.
Yeah, and I get to say that you were in Canada. Now
I've done a lot in Canada. I did a lot in Toronto and Vancouver both.
Well, that's awesome.
But I kind of, because of the proximity to LA and what I was doing out there at the time, Vancouver was a little easier running back and forth to Hollywood,
Yeah, because it's closer. Yeah, exactly. Now then, your second album was solo, and you also produced the tracks for White Raven Records recording artist Heather Ann's first solo album. And that did well. Now you're collaborating with Grammy winning producers, I'm going to say his name wrong, Bill Cuomo. Did I say it right?
Cuomo. That's right.
Okay. Who produced Cruel and Unusual with you. And we already talked about this. You joke that Cruel and Unusual has been illegally downloaded more than any other of your songs. That's not funny.
That's accurate.
That is not good. I just don't
it's kind of a really thorn in my side kind of accomplishment.
I guess. You could look at it
that way. I'll tell you the irony. We had, I think, around the point that came out, I think we had a couple of million widget impressions. And it was kind of like the story that we were talking about with the band Kansas, with what happened with them. And we went from, all of a sudden, we had about 7 million widget impressions. That translated to very, very few sales, and then through a series of events and getting information from different fronts, we just realized it was being downloaded again and again and again. in ways where we just saw no revenue from it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was
But to credit one thing, it's funny, Bill and I did that a while back. The last thing that Bill and I worked on was a TV pilot about a year ago, and we stay in contact. But the last album that I did was pretty much, I had remastered some studio tracks, including Cruel, that we did. Or actually, no, Cruel was the one track I didn't have to remaster. The guy that did our remastering, that did the original master, was amazing. But pretty much everything else was remastered. And then the story of the live recordings that I had told you, that was something that was really personal. That I was not. I have all the respect in the world for Bill. I've got to work with people like Bob Kulick, who's done just. He won a Grammy for Ace of Spades.
Yeah.
Letterhead.
Mm-hmm.
And had worked with Bob and just a lot of amazing people. But this one was kind of personal,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, yeah, they are amazing. Now, you've also, to add to your repertoire, you've also founded Rock God Entertainment Group. And it's actually a video game production company. And what its goal is to let people kind of pretend to be rock legends, right?
We jokingly called it in the pitch session, if you could win this game easily, it's kind of how to become a rock star for idiots. Because it's really, when we do that, and we're actually restructuring, we're going to be going to Rock God Multimedia, because at the time of the inception of this, that's been a long journey. That was a lot of my business in Toronto, funny enough. Was dealing with, there's some amazing game developers up there.
Mm-hmm.
And when we first started copywriting and coming up with this concept, and I was lucky enough to have some really amazing people that were collaborating with me on that, like Mark Slaughter, Eric Singer from Kiss, people from the Guess Who, Steppenwolf, on and on and on. And everybody had some really brilliant ideas, and we went in and sat down with these developers and started watching their eyes pop out of their heads.
Wow.
And by the time that we did the first spreadsheet, I think the budget was coming out just over $20 million.
Holy God. Oh my God.
Yeah, and that was what a couple of the investors said. And the reason being, some of the ideas that we had were just ahead of the technology at the time. And what's amazing now with what's been happening and the things with virtual reality and the tracking systems that I'm trying to think of, Connect, like with Xbox One and some of the tracking it could do, virtual reality and the different things going on. The technology is now caught up to where a special game engine wouldn't have to be built, and that budget, it'd still be rather high, but nowhere near those original numbers.
Yeah, no kidding.
So we're pretty excited, because as opposed to having a team of about 40 or 50 developers, it can be done with a much smaller crew of people and for a much more reasonable budget. So we're actually in the process now of working on animations and things that would be used in what are called the cutscenes for the games, and kind of fine tuning all that, and are excited that it's come around to where that's actually going to be reality.
And that is amazing, because what I love about it, I'm a classic rock crazy person. So,
awesome.
Yeah, this reacquaints classic rock fans with their idols when they were young, which is, I am so happy, because young people are going to hear songs and understand why we talk about, back in the day, the music, was just amazing and it made sense, and and yeah, I'm going to get the game. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, what's really neat too is we're starting. The plan was to do this second, but we're actually going to start with, it'll be called Rock Goddess.
Ooh.
And we actually want to highlight. I've always thought that women in rock and roll just had to work twice as hard for half the recognition.
Yeah, totally.
And so, and when we were looking at demographics, or the numbers of people who were playing white women have really just taken over gaming
Mm-hmm.
in a big way.
Yeah.
When you look at the statistics, and there's not. I mean, you've got the Tomb Raiders and things like that, but there's not a whole lot of stuff out there that you can find where the women can role play and they get to be the heroes and they get to do a lot of the cool stuff that I think the guys take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
So when we looked at the numbers, and I've always been such a huge fan of a lot of the female artists, it was just a no-brainer. So we're actually starting with the female storyline.
Oh my goodness. Can I ask what artists, or is that a secret?
Now we're under so many NDAs.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Right now it's pretty much a secret.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm just gonna randomly say who I'd like to have on there. Not that my opinion matters, but I'm still gonna tell you. Heart would be number one on my list. Heart.
I love Anna. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
I wanted to be Stevie Nicks when I grew up. So that would be amazing. Oh yeah. So there's tons of them. But those are two that just popped out when you were saying that, like Rock Goddess. I think that is amazing, and I cannot wait. And I'm going to make my grandson play it because he's a gamer. Anyways.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Now, you're currently in the process of forming a new corporation. Now, you've appeared in television projects, recorded audiobooks, radio appearances, and several music projects. And that was just last year.
Right.
That's a lot to cram into a year, Jon. Holy God.
Yeah, there's always something going on, So it's like right now, and we're constantly approached by people that want us to consult or take a look at projects that they're doing. I've been resistant to jump into anything else, but every now and then something comes along, and what looks like I'm about to pile a little more on the platter.
Yeah. I don't know how you judge.
Yeah, it's been a busy couple of years. It really has, and we've been really lucky. Most of the people that we've worked with have been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talked about that block button earlier.
Yes, yeah.
When it wasn't so amazing, we used the block button.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about now. You're doing numerous recording projects in various phases of production. They're all slated for release in 2017. You're also working on some great technical innovations to improve the home recording experience, as well as a series of tutorial videos for those interested in learning about the recording industry. That is very awesome.
Right.
Yeah. I want to do it, but I'm not going to.
The market's changed. There was a period when the economy was tanking really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Again, looking at numbers, there were a lot of studios closing. And as that was happening, the kind of ripple effect was the home recording market got bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And as that was happening, there were some things Bill and I worked long distance a lot. So not only from my own experiences, but questions that I would get from young artists at times on how to deal with some of the issues that happen when you record at home.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be noise reduction or bounce or, sometimes interference from different things with cables.
Or lawnmowers.
We couldn't find anything that we wanted on the market.
Ah, okay.
And so one thing led to another, and we literally kind of started just turning over every phone, from working with military contractors to talking to people that have been in the business for a while and doing different things. So we've got some things that we've already have prototyped and have figured out the corrections that need to be made and made with those. And so we're looking at ways that could be affordable to most consumers out there that are wanting to try out this whole recording thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that would give them a way to do industry standard recordings without having to spend, $2,000 a day for a professional studio lockout.
Well, that's awesome. That is awesome. Okay, now this is the best part. I'm going to say this first. For those that were the age I was, and John, in the 70s and 80s, 90s, when classic rock was huge, hair bands were amazing. This is such a quote that makes me think of that. You're presently working in a mobile studio in an undisclosed location on a project or projects so sexy and cool, there won't be a dry seat left in the house once they're released.
That would be the quote. Yep.
I loved that when I read that.
That used to be a joke backstage, I'm not going to mention the specific name, but there was a certain character who was a very well-known frontman that I had the pleasure of working around and next to quite a bit, and his big thing used to be, he'd be like, hey baby, if there's a dry seat left in the house, we didn't do our job.
Yeah, and that's exactly what classic rock was about. I'm sorry, but that's what it was about. But the great lyrics and the great music, and I love classic rock. So yeah, I could go on and on and on. But I loved that quote because it just brought me back to when I was 16. Anyways, it's just. Well,
I'm rather fond of classic rock too, so.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so, right?
It's been pretty good to me.
No kidding. I love that you're bringing it back. Like, John, seriously, I'm in love with the fact that you're bringing it back, and people are going to get a chance to hear it. They're going to get a chance to hear if they, once your game's produced and they get to play it. So you're going to be saturating the industry and social media with classic rock. And young people are going to be able to hear these songs and fall in love with them just like we fell in love with them when we were younger. And I'm just, hats off to you for doing that. That's unbelievable. I'm in awe of you.
Thank you.
Now, if you had...
it's really cool. We've been amazed because I saw such a shift. I think I told you the last, hard release I did was actually in 2001. Mm-hmm. And then I was pretty much inundated just with I always tell people it's called show business, and the biggest word is business.
Yeah.
And just through a lot of series of events, I ended up doing a lot more behind the scenes on the business end. But when we released the first single for the new album, and I started looking at demographics, and I was in shock because 50% of the people that we were getting really positive responses from were the 16 to 25 age group.
Yeah.
And it was split right down the middle, male and female. And I was really shocked because I had not seen those numbers in years, mm-hmm. With that particular age group. And now as we released a couple more singles and now the albums came out, and it's, they're pretty dead even with the, 35 to 45 age group, which is really the bread and butter, mm-hmm. And the people that can remember the 80s, and a lot of them, okay, and I say can remember it, there's a lot of it I can't remember.
Me too.
But, for different reasons, maybe.
Yeah, uh-huh.
But it's been pretty amazing to see, the response from a lot of the younger people, because some of the ones that had the cool parents that played them 80s rock, mm-hmm. Are instantly into it. And then to some of them, they seem to act like it's this big new discovery, and we're like, nah, it's been around a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I really appreciate the excitement.
Yeah, and I'm serious. And I mean, my daughter can sing songs like ACDC word for word, and
cool.
A whole bunch of other ones. But ACDC is one of my. Oh, I went to see them in concert twice. I'm in love with them. And my grandson actually surprised me because I'm doing this show, and I've asked them both, because my grandson's 12, my granddaughter's 11, and my daughter's 31. So I always ask them, send me songs, or, who do you think I should interview? And my grandson shocked the heck out of me when he said, oh, what, Grandma, you should interview Motley Crue. I'm like, what? What? I said, you know
Very
who
cool.
you know who Motley Crue is? And he looked at me like I was crazy. I'm like, okay, sorry. He's like, they have like
Sounds like a cool
Spotify.
kid. Like, yeah, of course I know who Motley Crue is.
Yeah.
We actually just, I don't know if you ever see it on Facebook. They have the things with kids react to ACDC or they react to Motley Crue or,
Yeah, it's
you
crazy.
know, different bands. And my wife had actually found the kids reacting to Motley Crue last night. So your grandson, like, hats off to him, and it's cool because there was one kid on that driving me crazy. You know, because all the other ones, they were at least open to it, and there was this one kid, I don't like it. I don't like it. They look like girls. I don't like it.
Oh
you know?
my god.
And I was just sitting there going, that kid had horrible parents. You know. So
That's going to be the answer. Horrible parenting. That's funny. Yes.
absolutely.
Well, and you know what they don't understand is, the posters I had up in my room, like, oh my God. And I don't think they realized, yeah, girls go crazy for bands now, but it was a different, I can't even explain it. It was just a different atmosphere. And you felt like you really, really, really got to know the artists, even though, you know, they were kind of untouchable.
Well, it was a different time. I mean, you have now, you've got to pay to meet and greets and things, and, you know, back in the day, a lot of the fan interaction, I mean, you might pull up at an arena, depending, you know, it might be 2 or 3 in the morning, it might be 9 or 10 in the morning. It didn't matter what time it was, but there would always be that group of hardcore fans,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that would be by that gate at the loading docks of the venue, and they have been out there for hours. I mean, we pull up, and I mean, it could be pouring down rain with you know, thunder and lightning going, and bless their hearts, they're standing there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And the bands would take the time, and you'd go up and talk to them, and, you know, if they didn't seem like a psycho, you know, if it was real bad weather, you'd invite them on the bus for a little while.
Yeah.
And hang out. So it was, you know, it was a whole different thing. And I mean, and I've heard a lot of complaints from some of the older fans because they feel like that's been lost. And, you know, it's like if you want a chance in hell of meeting the band, you're going to pay a few grand.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a shot in the dark. Yeah.
You know, so it's changed. Yeah, I mean, it was a whole different time. And I mean, the 80s, you know, as far as, I think if they're kids, and I'll censor this, but...
No, go ahead. It's my show.
It was, you know, I think you had the 60s that was kind of the crazy hippie movement, and I actually had a sister that was, you know, I was always fascinated kind of by some of her shenanigans, especially with the whole gospel thing going on, because I'd kind of sit and watch her in the back of my mind and go, I got to try that one, you know.
Yeah.
And then when we came into the 80s, you know, and I think a lot of the mood right now is the same as it was in the 80s. You know, the 80s was coming out of that whole theme with Vietnam, and a lot of people were disfranchised with what was going on.
Yeah.
And there was some angry, rebellious music that I think touched a chord with people, and I think we're kind of back here again. But there were a few things that popped up in the 80s, like AIDS and different things that I think would, you know, certainly has altered the behavior of being on tour.
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah.
And, you know, and that sort of thing. But I can tell you, until the news came out about Rock Hudson, you know, it was, you know, I wasn't there for the 60s, but I knew guys like Barry McGuire,
Mm-hmm.
Who did Ibid Discretion, and I sit and spoke to him. I got to sit in a room and talk to people like Will Richard, Mickey Dolenz, you know, Alice Cooper, on and on and on. And I always sit and laughed, and I said, well, you know, it looks like the 60s would have been cool, but I said, nah, this 80s thing's working for me, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, so I know exactly what you're saying. It was a different world.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there wasn't social media, so the only way you could interact with the fans is if you did stand in line, and they did. They interacted. They even interacted during concerts, and that doesn't happen a lot now. I mean, unfortunately, there's a lot of craziness in the world now, but I think we need to get back to where, you know, it's a little more calmer, and there is, like, I can't even, everything, I don't want to say, I have to be careful because I have so many different artists come on here, but I want it to be, I don't know, I can't even, more personable, I guess, and more connected to the music, and not so worried about, you know, if I go and do a concert, I'm going to, you know, get attacked or whatever the case may be. We need to get back to that. And that's what the 80s to me was all about. There wasn't all the, I mean, there was craziness, but it wasn't as crazy as it is now. So I'm really glad you're bringing it back. That's all I'm saying. Now,
I think, I mean, when you look at the numbers back then, how you can have an arena with 20,000 people, and if you watch the T-shirt security guys, they might have to toss a dozen of them.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's crazy.
That's pretty good numbers.
Yeah.
And I mean, now it's, I told you we're thinking about going on tour in the fall. Mm-hmm. And I always loved performing in Europe and some of the other places, but I mean, right now there's just not enough money to get me out of North America. There just isn't.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, Europe's still kind of reeling right now too, so yeah, unfortunately. Well, I think you're going to make a huge difference. Now, because you've done just about everything, if there was any advice you could give any new artist, no matter what they wanted to do, because you've done so many things, what would the advice be? Like, how did you keep going and make it to where you are right now?
It's funny because this conversation's come up a lot lately on a professional level with some different artists. And, the first one, and I said earlier, it's called show business. Business is the biggest word. Mm-hmm. And I meet a lot of bands that are like, dude, we rehearse all the time, but we're not making it. We can't do this. We can't do that. And I've asked them, I'm like, okay, so you spend 20 hours a week rehearsing, how many hours a week have you spent actually looking up entertainment law and licensing and, learning about writers and how to construct a contract for a show? If they can't afford an entertainment attorney, I mean, the first thing I would say is if they got the money, get a good entertainment attorney. Mm-hmm. So I mean that's one, but you got to take care of the business to do the show.
Exactly.
So that's a big one, and then the other one that absolutely is just a big pet peeve. I see a lot of indie artists, especially that don't have the background with labels and things, that don't really understand packaging and branding. Mm-hmm. And I'll see them, and they might put one album out and it doesn't do the way they want, so they jump to a different genre. Yeah. And maybe that doesn't do the way they want it to do, and then they jump to another genre. And if they have any dream of ever being with a major, it's not going to happen if you're doing that, because now the climate the way it is, you pretty much have to have your packaging and branding and everything together before they're even going to look at you. They're not going to spend the money to develop you like they used to. Mm-hmm. And so I think kind of the Colonel Sanders thing, pick one thing, do it right, and you know what, if you don't get the first response from the album that you love doing from it, don't be afraid of some constructive criticism, and fans are brutally honest, if you're playing a gig and you notice there's certain songs that they're really getting into, find out what they like about it. If you notice there's certain songs where you're losing them, find out what they hated about it, and adapt your writing to that input. So I think those are the two big ones that I would say to anyone.
And that's great advice. I totally agree. I'm hearing of all these new genres that I never even heard of before. I'm like, what? You're what?
Right.
But anyways, great advice.
Well, it's hard to put somebody in a box if they're, I mean, I've seen bands. I think it was one I was joking on my radio show with my co-host, and I was listening to this music and I was going, man, please tell me the lip's going to go, what they've got, that, this is going to work. And I went, and the guy had this picture, it was like a sad dog.
Oh my God.
With some pretty kick and ride music. And so I was sitting there going, okay, how did I get from Motley Crue to Conway Twitty? What happened?
Yeah, no kidding.
And I'm very finicky about the artists. We play a lot of classic rock on my show, mm-hmm. And things. And when we do put independent artists on, and I'm a stickler, for if I go to their social media pages and I can't find the music.
Yes.
If there's no contact information, or if you go to their website, one example was a band literally had 4 or 5 30 or 45-second clips of their rehearsals.
Yeah.
And no actual recordings. And So, it's kind of when we were talking about, I think there's 6.5, 7 million people on Reverb Nation.
Yeah.
And, maybe out of those, I would say, and I'm probably being generous, maybe 100,000 if you tried to click on every link is going to be up to date and work.
I know. Trust me, I know. Because I'm looking constantly. And yeah, my pet peeve too is when I go to their social media, if I can't get to a song or hear a song, no, I'm sorry. Like, you have to make it available to me because, if I can't hear you and I can't find your song, I don't really want to put you on my show because then, my fans are going to be going, well, how the hell do we get their songs? Like, where the hell are they? So I hear you. Exactly. And I mean, that's good advice in itself. I have a lot of indie artists I love. And I mean, the part about my show is because I put all kinds of artists on, painters, authors, whatever. But the music industry is very, very huge on my show. And I love discovering these people. And I cannot believe that, mainstream, and I'm using air quotes there, won't even acknowledge them, and didn't even acknowledge them when I was a radio announcer because they had to be signed and they had to be, popular and they had to be this. And it wasn't about the music, right. And it should be about the music. End of story. But yeah, if any independent artists out there are, trying to make it, make sure that you have everything on your social media or your website. Don't make me go searching, because if I have to go searching, I'm sorry, I'm going to go on to the next artist. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It just is like, I have people that are going to go to your website. Like, I'm directing them to you. Please make sure that everything's up to date and they can hear you and whatever. So yeah, I hear you about that.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Yes. You know my struggle. Anyways, what 2 songs are we going to hear from you?
One of them is called Fallen Angel, which that's actually a live recording that was done close to 30 years ago. And the masters were pretty much, let's say they were lost under mysterious circumstances to the music, and a lot of the copies had disappeared, and just as an accident, an old studio quality cassette tape was found that using Cakewalk sonar that just has some amazing tools, that was literally brought back to life from an almost warped tape. And revived, and we had debated whether to do overdubs and things, but we chose not to keep it real, to keep that feel of those performances during that period. Mm-hmm. And then the second one, just much more clinical. It was actually the song Rock God, which were the video games we were talking about. That was actually recorded to use in the PowerPoint pitch sessions with investors and the game developers in Toronto. But
wow. Now, I love the sound of Fallen Angel, and you said it's how it was done originally 30 years ago, and that's probably why I fell in love with it, because it takes me back. Now, where are you going now, Jon? What are we going to see from you in the future?
I'll tell you right now, like I said, we're looking at working with a couple of new artists on top of the album I just put out was the Lost Years Collection Volume 1. I've got, I'm hoping I'll live long enough to record all the material that we actually had a bus fire.
Oh.
A while back, and again thought that the songs were actually on a digital audio workstation that was made by Roland, and we thought that all of those tracks were destroyed, and I'm talking year and a half of recording, something like that. And through the wonders of modern technology, we were able, just in a not too distant past, pull all of those tracks from a drive that had been in a fire. So we're working on actually bringing those tracks back to life, as well as some new material. We're working with new artists. We're working on the video game. We're working on the things that have to do with the home recording market that we were discussing. And then, like I said, hopefully in the fall, we're going to look at going out and hitting the road here in North America.
Are you planning Canada in there at all?
I would like to. It's really, it's one of those. It's a supply and demand business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So if there's a supply of fans there that meet the demand, absolutely.
Well, I do know. I've seen some really good classic rock bands perform at the casinos here. We have 2 of them, and so I know one of them.
I probably spent time in them.
Yeah. Oh, so have I. Thank God. I don't anymore. I learned my lesson. But I know one of them follows me.
Right.
So I'm just going to put it out there that you should really get Jon Raven to come and perform at one of the casinos, the one in my area. Could they know who I am? Anyways, so yeah. Maybe book them and, get them out here. Anyways.
Well, we're always open. It's another one of those jokes, like not a dry seat in the house, like no venue is too small, no fee is too big.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so people can get your songs and albums. Is it pretty much everywhere you can purchase online music, or is it just CD Baby, or where are you?
It is absolutely everywhere. So it's actually in a lot of markets. I can't even pronounce the names of some of the venues where you can pick it up online. But I don't know if I haven't come across anywhere that I couldn't find it. CD Baby, we have plugged a little bit for if people would like the entire album. It is available for a pretty significant discount on it.
Okay. And then they also can go to your website, which will be up on my website. Unfortunately, I can't link it because my website is insane. But I will put it up there. It's jonraven.rocks, which I love.
.rocks.
Yeah.
Yep. That was actually my business partner and publicist had found. She called me up one day because there's a guy, funny enough, from kind of up your way that had decided, despite cease and desist letters and everything, thought it would be fun to try to use my name and even lie to the trademark office here.
Oh my God!
About some things, and found out that didn't work too well. And he had .com, and so I was trying to think of something that would still be simple for the fans, that would be easy to go with. And my partner called me up one day and she goes, "Do you know they have a .rocks now?" And I was like, I said, "You know what?" I said, "I wouldn't care if I had .com. I want that." So I do rock and roll. It's jonraven.rocks. It just doesn't get much easier.
Yeah, no kidding. I didn't know they did rocks, which is why I asked you before the show. Is that actually a website? It's like, what? .rocks. Okay, so and I'm urging everybody to go to Jon's site because his website is amazing. You can find out all kinds of things about him and the pictures and all the songs that are available and albums. So I urge everybody to go there. I urge everybody to purchase your music and support you. And that's my big thing about, support the artists. Don't do the illegal downloads or, whatever. Buy them, please. They're not that expensive.
We're not talking like a lot of money here.
Yeah, exactly. We're not asking you, to put up like $1,000. Anyway, Jon.
No, if you could pay $5 for a coffee, a cup of coffee at Starbucks, you can spend 99 cents on a song.
Exactly. And you get more to the song than you do at a Starbucks. Anyways, I'm a Tim Hortons girl, so anyway. Jon, thank you so much for coming on. I've been looking forward to this all week, just because of the radio thing and just everything you do. I knew this was going to be an amazing interview, and it has been. And I'm excited for the future for you. And I want to let you know, this isn't a one-shot deal. If you ever have anything new come up, if you want to announce your tours, if your game's finally done, you can always contact me on Twitter and I'll bring you back on. If you release some new singles, I have a part on my website called Odds and Ends, and I will throw your singles up there to help promote them. So
that would be fantastic. Well, it's been my pleasure, Allie. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out.
So I can't thank you enough. Especially somebody with your enthusiasm about the music, we need more of you.
Aw, thank you. We need more of you. Okay, and
thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me on Allie's Attic. Keep checking my website because you honestly never know what kind of surprise you'll find in my attic. Cheers.